Hello, Alta Live friends. Welcome, welcome. My name is Beth Spotswood. I work at Alta Journal, and I am so excited to welcome you to today's conversation with Monica Corcoran Harel about visiting a road trip in the Sonoma Napa wine country without drinking any alcohol. Monica wrote about it for our Alta's current issue, issue 32. We're calling it the road trip issue. It's not all about road trips, but our cover package is all about road trips. And Monica went on a 3-day trip extravaganza through Sonoma, through Napa Valley, and did it all sober without drinking, but experienced non-alcoholic wines, extraordinary opportunities for those of us who don't drink to enjoy wine country. And so she's going to share that with us today. And we're going to talk all about it and hear what made the article, what did make the article, all of that great stuff. Monica is a screenwriter with a media platform for women over 40 called Pretty Ripe, and she loves being middle-aged. We're also at the end, she's going to tell us about an upcoming retreat she has. So if you're like me and a woman over 40, stay tuned for that. But before we dive in, I do want to, if you're new to us, if you're new to Alta, um, Alta is an award. I got a new laptop and it follows me everywhere I go. Alta is an award-winning quarterly magazine and website focused on California and the West. We are
Woo!
beautiful and gorgeous. And not only do we have really cool articles like Monica's, and I mean, you guys, look at how just stunning everything is. This issue has a really special pullout. You can pull out this little booklet, and it's all about the beat poet Lou Welch, who died um long before his time, far too early. We're doing a special event around him with the writer of this special folio, Brad Rassler. And he's going to be in conversation with the poetry editor at City Lights Bookstore. That's on July 31st. And I encourage all of you to attend. It's going to be in Kerouac Alley. And we're going to talk beat poetry. We're going to have poets come and read. It's going to be awesome on a summer evening. But anyway, that's what Alta is about. Events like this, events in alleys in San Francisco about poetry, having amazing women like Monica go to wine country sober and write about it. So if you haven't yet subscribed, I really encourage you to. $50 a year gets you 4 gorgeous issues of Alta and a special gift. I'll drop a link in the chat. And of course, if you're a regular at Alta, you will get an email sometime this afternoon or evening with a link to Monica's wonderful article, Sober Sideways, in our current issue, where you can watch this video in case you missed it or want to share it with all of your friends, how you can subscribe to Alta, how you can sign up for Monica's upcoming retreat, and anything else that pops up in today's conversation. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to ask your questions for Monica. And I shout out to Oklahoma, Mountain View, a subscriber, Claudia in Connecticut, who's already a subscriber. Thank you. Grass Valley, Alhambra. So great to see our community tuning in. Welcome to all of you. And especially big welcome to you, Monica. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I love your energy.
I come in with big energy on Alta
I'm in
Live.
hot.
Well, 12:30 on a Wednesday. Let's make it happen.
I want to preface this discussion
Um,
by saying I am sober now too, at the moment.
right?
Yes.
Likewise.
Yes.
Um, so I'm curious why you decided to do kind of was your trip was your sober road trip to California's wine country a challenge to your sobriety to see if you could do it and have fun, or was it a challenge to the region to see if they could cater to those of us that don't drink for whatever reason?
Beth, that's such a great question. And actually, it was both. Originally, let me just backtrack a bit. I've been drinking for most of my life, and I've been quitting drinking for most of my life. And about 2 years ago, over 2 years ago now, I decided that's it. I've made this decision a number of times. I am going to remain sober. And with my 2 year anniversary coming up, I thought to myself, I want to do something alone. And what's a place that I visited in the past that I've made a lot of drunken transgressions? And I also thought wine country is so beautiful, but I've never experienced it without being heavily buzzed. So I've missed out on a lot of the landscape and the non-drinking offerings. So I thought I want to go up there and see wine country and experience it without rushing from one winery to the next or without stoking a so-called buzz. And when I mentioned it to the editor, Mary Melton, she was intrigued. And as you know, alcohol consumption is down. So wine country is in a really interesting position right now. So to your point about challenging the region, I thought, what is there for people who don't drink? How are they catering to people, or at least course correcting during this interesting time?
Well, so before we get to all of the cool and amazing things that are in wine country, can you talk a little bit about this interesting time and the shift in um, how people are drinking alcohol and what that looks like in 2025?
Well, I recently did a panel with three founders of non-alcoholic elixirs. One of them also has a non-alcoholic wine, and it's really interesting. This movement is really being fronted by women, which I thought was fascinating because traditionally the alcohol industry has been dominated by men. But getting back to your question, less people are drinking. And there are a few reasons for that. Gen Z and millennials just seem to be less interested in alcohol. They would rather do yoga or meditate or just gather without booze. And it's really fascinating because we're seeing a decline among young people. And then at the same time, people like me who are in middle age, who are, cognizant of the fact that we're not immortal as happens as you get older, are seeing these reports coming out of the NIH. There was a point where they said, oh, a little bit of wine is good for you, and then everybody was saying, well, I have to have my glass of red wine every day. And then I believe it was last year the Surgeon General came out with a pretty damning report that said alcohol is the third leading cause of cancer. And I think that was really jarring for a lot of people. And, it also correlates to heart disease and stroke. So alcohol's getting a bad rap. I don't think that Gen Zers and millennials are following the health advice. I think they're just choosing alternatives because there are alternatives. I think there's more to do now for people that does not revolve around booze.
If I can reference your own numbers from your article, um,
Yes.
in a 2024 Nielsen survey, 45% of Gen Zers older than 21 said they did not consume any alcohol in 2023. And you kind of suggest maybe medication or weed has replaced inebriation for a younger demographic. But it's interesting that young people and, people in their early 20s are drinking so significantly less than they did certainly when I was in my early 20s.
I just thought of, I have an idea. They're so focused on life balance, life work balance. And I think for me, I had a stressful job as a financial reporter when I was in my 20s, and I would drink after work. I mean, a lot of the culture was around going to a bar. I was in New York at the time, but I really didn't have work-life balance. So alcohol helped me unwind. I think a lot of these people are really prioritizing their sanity, their happiness, their free time. And so they're not turning to alcohol to relax because they're leading a less stressful life. That's just my theory.
All right. So you spent 3 glorious days in wine country. Can you, for those here that have yet to read the article, and don't worry, we're going to send you links to it. You're going to read it. You're going to love it. It'll be great. Can you give us a highlight? One highlight that is a drink you found, be it a mocktail, a non-alcoholic wine, some kind of magical elixir that you discovered that was a highlight, and one non-drinking, non-food item
Yes.
that was a
Let me
highlight.
start with drinking. The quintessential Napa Sonoma experience is going to a gorgeous winery, looking up, seeing hawks soar by, and drinking. And sometimes there's a sommelier to tell you about that particular winery or the grapes and the harvest. And you're sitting there and the sun is out and the skies are blue. And I will admit, I miss that. It's really part of the culture there. And you meet other people doing that. That's part of a wine tasting. They group you so that you talk to people who are from other places. So I'm going to call out Bouchain Vineyards, which is on the top of the Carneros Valley, and they have a new rosé that they just created in the past year to service the need for people who don't drink. And you can go up there and get a glass of this non-alcoholic rosé, which is actually processed and fermented, and they remove the alcohol afterwards. So it still tastes like wine. Whereas a lot of people talk about non-alcoholic wines tasting like grape juice because back in the day, before they started creating it in a more sophisticated way, it was really just grape juice without the fermentation process. So Bouchain's rosé is divine. And when you're up there, you're surrounded by people who are drinking and some people who aren't drinking. So you really get that experience. And I have to say, it's perched up in this valley. So you just have views of all of Sonoma around you. It's gorgeous. And I love that. I love that experience. Having said that, there are plenty of non-alcoholic options too. Even the little general stores that you'll pass in Napa and Sonoma have a non-alcoholic shelf for, wines or elixirs. There's non-alcoholic gin. So you can find that out there, but I call out Bouchain because you really do get that experience. And I will say, as someone who went to many wineries back in my drinking day, that was the one thing I kind of craved for the social aspect of it, the view, and just feeling like non-deprived, if you will, of the experience. And then when it comes to a non-drinking or eating experience, I'm going to call out Jack London State Park, which is just a jewel of a place. It's in Glen Ellen, and Jack London lived there with his wife. Later in life, he didn't live that long. He died in his 50s, and he wrote a book called John Barleycorn, which was all about his struggle with alcohol, starting drinking very young, being a stevedore and drinking, just on his many travels as a sailor, drinking, and a journalist. So in this book, he really talks about the struggle he had with booze and how, he tried to limit himself and he really couldn't. He called it white lightning, that moment where you drink and all of a sudden you feel like you know everything. We've all been in the room with someone experiencing white lightning. Suddenly you need to talk and you need to tell people all the epiphanies that you're having. So Jack London State Park is just this beautiful place. There are redwoods and there are old vineyards, and there's the cottage that he lived in with his wife. There's also a manor that he built called Wolf Hall that unfortunately burned down. But you really get a sense of his life there, and you just can drink in, no pun intended, the beauty of the region. It's one place you park and you can just spend hours there, as I did.
We have an article about that. I'm literally finding it right now, The First and Last Lives of Jack London by Joy Lansendorfer. And I'm going to make sure that my wonderful colleague Liz, who is here taking copious notes, includes that as well, because that will add to your Glen Ellen experience if you are
Yes, yes, you
going on a
have to
road trip.
visit this park. And there's also even a little museum and a gift shop. So it's just a fascinating place. It really is for the nature and the history.
All right. So what didn't make the article? What did that Mary Melton cut?
Okay.
Who
Mary,
is a wonderful editor and a beloved
she
friend and
actually
colleague.
didn't cut much, but there were a few things that I did that didn't make the article. And speaking of Jack London Park, I stopped at a restaurant in Glen Ellen called Yeti that serves Nepalese food. And I got something called a chicken momo, which was ground chicken in a little, almost like a dumpling wonton. And I brought that to the park, and I have never been happier. So Yeti, which is on the road in Glen Ellen, it's, believe it or not, I
Like
hate
a
to say
Yeti, like a Yeti cooler.
Yeti, like a
Okay.
Yeti, and fantastic Nepalese food and lovely people. Right next door, there's also a little chocolate store. There's a chocolatier run by a mom and daughter, neither of whom were there when I visited, but I talked to the woman who I bought chocolates from, and those were delicious. The beauty of Sonoma and Napa is there are so many little gems. It's not even that they're hidden. There's so many, it's hard to hit them all. There are over 800 wineries. So that gives you a sense of how much variety is there and how, I mean, if you were on a road trip and hitting every winery, you should not be driving. Let's put it that way. I think it's kind of funny that I did a road trip through Napa and Sonoma, which I wouldn't recommend unless you are not drinking or have a designated driver, which most people do. But everything there is fantastic. I mean, everything, even gas station food is gourmet. It's really crazy. They prioritize quality when it comes to food and drink in a very profound way that I appreciated.
I want to go to the olive oil place. What's the name of it?
Napa Valley Olive Oil Manufacturing Company, I believe it is. Is a very long name.
Yes.
And
St.
it's run by
Helena.
run by a family that's been there since the 30s. I have to say, you walk in and it's almost like an antique store in that the shelves are filled with all sorts of foods and confections and olive oils and vinegars and olives and pickles. I mean, I could have spent half a day there. And they happen to also have my favorite Italian candy, which is Torroni. It's a nougat candy that has
Brownie.
almonds or pistachios. And I was told that theirs comes from Sicily and they cut it off a block. I brought that to Jack London Park too. Let me just tell you something. I ate a lot in that park and I put all my refuse in the garbage can. So Napa Valley Olive Oil Manufacturing Company is a must visit. It's been there forever. And again, if you don't know about it, you won't see it because it's down a road. But people who do know about it never skip it when they visit. And I'm
You,
lucky because a friend of mine who grew up in Napa told me about it, so I made it the last time.
there's a map, you guys. You
Yes.
can follow the road trip and take the map. Um, did you find were you comfortable in your sobriety on this trip? You're alone. You don't have, I mean, I don't know, necessarily support. I realize people don't drink for a million different reasons. Um, but how did you feel? How did you do? Would you do it again?
I would do it again tomorrow. Send me back to Napa, please, for a month-long road trip. Interestingly enough, I was not tempted. Rather, I was validated by my decision, or my decision was validated by experiencing Napa sober and really being able to process the history of the place, the beauty, talk to people. And look, some people can have a glass of wine or two glasses of wine and go about their day and function. I'm not that person. I drink more than I should, or I did at that time. So really, I missed out on a lot. So being up there, I thought I'd be tempted, but really I was so intrigued and bewitched by the region, talking to people, having meaningful connections with people. And what was surprising was, I don't know whether this was the universe, I live in LA, or kismet, but many people that I ended up having conversations with were either newly sober or cutting back on their drinking. So it became a point of conversation, not in a smug, sanctimonious way, more in a, wow, how has your life changed? What made you decide to do that? And what's different now? So I met a few people on my plane ride home. I met someone who was sober, an actor, and we talked about it. At the hotel I stayed out, which I have to call out, the El Dorado Hotel in Sonoma, which is so cool, dates back to the 1800s, and you just really get a sense of place there.
Love that. So is that what was most surprising for you? I mean, my question was really going to be what was the big kind of like mind-blowing experience that you did not expect from your 3 days?
I didn't expect to meet so many people who were reevaluating their lifestyles around alcohol. And I didn't even bring it up right away. It came up in conversation. Um, I also found it surprising that there are people there who are very, I guess this isn't that surprising, but they're threatened by this trend. And I understand it's the livelihood of the region.
Oh, well, yeah.
So people drinking less means less wine bought. It affects, it's an expensive business. And wine sales were down in 2024 by 8%, I believe. And that's huge. That's a huge loss for them. So what I heard from people who said, "Oh, well, you can't name names," is that some wineries are kind of doubling down and saying like, "Sober October, come on over here and drink." Or dry January, our wine is half off. I think in a weird way they're feeling like we're going to double down and we're going to appeal to people who are like, I'm never going to be sober. I'm never going to cut back on drinking. When I think about it, Napa and Sonoma is a little bit like the town in Jaws when the shark shows up at 4th of July. That happens to be one of my favorite movies. Amityville is the name of the town. And the shark shows up, and all the business owners are like, you
You
can't
can't
talk
close,
about the shark because
can't close the
they're not
beach.
going to come. Right. And I think there's that sense in Napa and Sonoma. I did reach out to some wineries to get, talk to owners about how they're course correcting. And 4 out of 5 said we don't want to talk about people drinking less. So I don't know whether their heads are in the sand or they just don't want that to be part of the conversation in association with Napa and Sonoma, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, I don't think they want to be known as wine and non-alcoholic wine country.
Sure. All right. I've got a couple of questions from the audience if you're ready.
Ooh, yay.
All right. Marge asks, on the way to wine country, did you consider a stopover in Richmond, where there's an urban winery right on the edge of the San Francisco Bay with amazing sober sites like the Rosie the Riveter Museum? Oh, did you? All right. So I'm seeing the Red Oak Victory ships, the art. Did you consider, was your road trip focus exclusively wine country?
I
As
did.
opposed to like going a little bit outside the field. This is your opportunity to give a shout out to the Charles Schultz Airport, which you and our creative director, John Gecky, seem to think is the best airport in the world.
Okay.
Monica is in LA, so she flew in straight to wine country.
For me to drive up there would have been 8 hours, and I knew I was really only spending 3 days. So it would have cut into the trip within the road trip. So I did fly into Charles Schultz Airport, Charles M. Schultz. I have to say, it is a must. There used to be a woman who would sit and remember Lucy had her 5 cent psychiatric evaluation. She would give you therapy, talk therapy, Lucy from the Peanuts. There used to be a woman who
Oh yeah.
sat in
Yeah.
like a little box like that, and she would help people like tell you where to go. But it was in that same box that Lucy used to sit in her little entrepreneurial venture. So that's gone, but there are still peanut sculptures. Snoopy is present. Everyone there is so low key. The TSA agents could not be nicer. I think I mentioned in the piece, they're like whistling as you go through security. It's kind of unheard of. It is the easiest way to go. And then you're 30 miles from downtown Sonoma. And the drive there is gorgeous.
Everyone raves about this airport.
It's the best airport ever. It's in San Jose.
No,
Uh,
it's in Santa Rosa, I
Thank
thought.
you, Santa Rosa. Oh my God, Santa Rosa people are going to come after me. It's in Santa Rosa.
Well, there's an airport in San Jose also, but
Yes.
this is the Santa Rosa airport that is, I mean, I live in Nevada, surprisingly close, and I have never used this airport.
And there's a great little wine bar in there too, where you can get a bite to eat. It's tiny. It is tiny. And Alaska Air flies through there and maybe another airline. You're not going to be able to get a flight on Delta or one of the major carriers, though.
You
Maybe,
can't go direct from Charles Schultz to De Gaulle.
no, you cannot.
Okay.
Or even LAX. I mean, you can on Alaska Air. Yes.
Got it. Got it. Oh yeah, people are loving this airport. It's apparently very popular. All
Yeah,
right.
once you've been there, you never want to go elsewhere. And I will say,
There's a wine country secret that most people
yeah,
don't know about. They have a great airport.
yeah, but here's another thing. So when I did drink, last time I was up there, I was writing a story. This was probably about 7 years ago, and I purchased a very expensive bottle of wine. So excited to bring it back. And you cannot bring wine on carry-on. It has to be checked in your bag. I did not find that out until um, my bag had gone through, so I had to leave it on a seat for some lucky person to get. So make sure you pack it well, and put it in your carry-on as opposed to, I mean, your check bag.
If it's wine or olive oil or whatever
Yes,
fancy.
I came home with lemon olive oil, which was fantastic. I came home with honey. I know I mentioned La Ruche, which is a honey tasting room in Healdsburg. And if you're in the mood to taste, I mean, again, that's another wine experience, right? Tasting different wines. You can go, Nicole White is the proprietor. She's so knowledgeable and fun to talk to. And you will taste honey that will blow your mind. Honey infused with chestnut and lemon. And I think there was one that even tasted like bacon. It fit phenomenal selection.
All right, before we run out of time, last question. I want to step away from the wine and into the
Okay.
cocktails. There is a mocktail trail. Is it a
Yes.
mock trail?
It's a trail. It's a
Okay,
trail. I
tell
mean,
us about the mocktail trail.
so that is in Healdsburg. And kudos to Healdsburg for seeing what's happening and offering something for people who are electing not to drink or drink less. And I think there are 5 restaurants, my favorite being Little Saint, which had a concoction. I'm trying to think of what the one was there. I think it was some shrub and rosemary and maybe some Gravenstein apples. Gravenstein, is that correct?
Yeah.
So there was Little Saint, there's Good Night Steaks. There are a few places, but if you go to Healdsburg, look online, their Chamber of Commerce has all the different bars that participate, and I think there are 5 of them. And one other option is there's a guy I spoke to named Devin Joshua, and he does an Airbnb experience where you can um, he'll take you to different bars where mixologists will create non-alcoholic elixirs for you.
Wow.
I mean, I think we're going to see more of that in Napa and Sonoma. I do feel like they need to acknowledge what's happening, and doesn't mean that people don't want to drink wine. I think there are plenty of people who are just drinking a little less, and having an option, maybe if you're taking a break in between tastings, is really smart. I think it will befit the industry. And one thing I did find was, as someone who doesn't drink, some wineries don't want non-drinkers because their livelihood is selling a case of wine at the end of a tasting. So I wonder if some of these non-alcoholic brands or a few wineries will come together and offer a non-alcoholic tasting room. That's my suggestion because I think that would be very smart.
Fascinating, eye-opening conversation. Monica Corcoran Harel, thank you so much for taking the time for your great article, which is so fun to read. Um, and for taking the time to speak with Alta Live today, to our awesome crew for being here. And before you go, wait, Monica, tell us about your retreat that's coming up.
Okay. So last year, I have a platform for women over 40. As you know, I'm a very happy older woman in midlife. And so Alisal Ranch, which is a gorgeous kind of luxe dude ranch in Santa Barbara, came to me and asked if I could create a retreat called Act Two at Alisal around women who are over 40, who are looking to pivot in their lives, change their lifestyle, meet other women. And so I'm doing my second annual Act Two, September 14th through 16th at Alisal Ranch. I have a great roster of talent. We'll be doing workshops and chats. There will be wine and bourbon. We'll be line dancing. So it will just be fantastic. I did it last year and I thought going into it, oh, I hope I can inspire these women as host. I was so inspired. I felt like, wow, you're doing my job for me. So I hope we get the same caliber. And when I say that, just women who are really interested in attending and participating this year. And reach out to me if you have any questions.
Lisa's asking for your platforms and contact. We will include that in our email this afternoon or evening, depending upon when our team can get it all done. And folks, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I want to invite you next week. Brad Rassler, who wrote this beautiful, I mean, it's a keepsake. We call these an altafolio. And this is I Went Southwest, which is the note that Lou Welch, the poet, left and disappeared, never to be seen again. I theoretically to commit suicide. But he was an incredible beat poet. And Brad will be our guest in conversation with Alta's editorial director, Blaise Zariga. That's next Wednesday. And then we've got our special event with Brad coming up at City Lights in person. If you're in the Bay Area, please come. That is July 31st at 7 o'clock at night at City Lights. Come hang out with me. I'll be there. Brad will be there. I think Lou Welch's stepson Huey Lewis is going to come. Peter Coyote is scheduled to be there. It's going to be a great conversation and a great crowd. So if you're into poetry or beat generation stuff, that'll be awesome. Again, Monica, thank you so much. So much fun as always speaking with you.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Alta.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.